Growing up, one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite superhero characters was Batman. And so when the Christopher Nolan versions came out, I was super excited for another opportunity to see The Dark Knight. And Batman Begins with Liam Neeson playing Ra's al Ghul, the enemy, was great. Then came The Dark Knight with the Heath Ledger Joker, and a lot of you probably remember him in that role, and he set a new standard for that character. So the first two movies I was pretty thrilled with. They weren't perfect, but I could really enjoy them. And then came The Dark Knight Rises. And there was just something that in that movie that really irked me. Throughout the movie, for the most part, we see this character that has the face mask and is just this big brute of a guy, and we are thinking this is Bane. It's clearly the representation of Bane from the comic books, and then there's this part toward the end of the movie where it's revealed that Bane is really this woman who has undermined everything that Batman had been doing up until that point. And that killed the movie for me, because it completely went against what should have been Bane in that series. Isn't life kind of like that, though? I mean, take a look around you, and we look at the world, especially right now, and we think this scene in this story right now is anything but what it should be. Because oftentimes we think we have a better idea in our mind of what this scene should be like. I thought The Dark Knight Rises it bombed for me because of that one scene that changed everything I knew about Batman. And I look around at life now, and I'm like, this scene, let's be honest, this scene sucks right now for a lot of us. And we think we know how to make this scene better. We think we know what it's really going to take to make things right again. But then I started thinking about The Dark Knight Rises a little more, and I'm not ready to admit that the movie was good or perfect per se, but I began to think, it's not my place to necessarily tell the director what is right and wrong in their iteration of Batman. The same goes for us, I think, in our world right now. Maybe the scene's not perfect. Maybe it's not what we want it to be. But the scripture reminds us that God's ways and thoughts are well above ours. Who can search God's mind and know his thoughts and his plans better than God himself? I think one of the things we have to recognize in the world right now is that no matter what the scene is like, God still has the end game coming. Even if we don't like the current scene that we're in, the story always ends the same with God's story. Even as we're going through these different experiences in the world, God is always driving toward that final culmination when his kingdom comes to this world. That makes it tough for us because we kind of find ourselves in this precarious spot where we want to think we know what's best. We want to think we know how to change things to make it better in our perspective. But what if instead of that line of thinking, we started asking ourselves, what does it look like in God's perspective for us to do in these moments? Maybe the scene doesn't change. Maybe the scene stays the same for us. But in the midst of that, we have a director who's calling us to play our part in that scene, whether we like it or not. There's times where actors and actresses will announce that they weren't thrilled with a portrayal of their character in a movie despite their participation in it. But it was the director's call, not theirs. We have to be willing to listen to our director. We have to be willing to listen to what God is saying to us, whatever that may be, to live into these scenes that we are in right now, even as tough as they can be, to share love and grace with a world that needs it. So yeah, maybe I didn't like how The Dark Knight Rises ultimately portrayed Bane, but Christopher Nolan did. Maybe I don't like how the scenes around me right now in this world are playing out. Maybe I don't like how we have to live into this new reality right now. But what are the opportunities that God is now saying I have to play my part in sharing his message with those around me, because in spite of this reality, that's our call. So whatever your scene may be right now, whatever scene you are facing, maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Maybe this is like the absolute worst scene you could think of. But maybe, just maybe, our director is calling us to play a part in that scene for a larger purpose. Just maybe. Just maybe. We're going to find a plot twist that we weren't expecting, too.